A warm welcome to this official launch of the Austrian chapter of Women in Global Health. Thanks so much. It's incredible looking into this room, a full room. It's dominated by women, but we do have a good number of men in here, and thanks so much for joining us. Also, a big thank you to our online audience. We've seen that we have participants from all over the world joining us, many of them also Women in Global Health members. So thank you also to you. We will kickstart the forum right after this, and there is a history behind this, of course. The EHFG is the host organization of Women in Global Health, which we've just launched actually we've kickstarted with a members' assembly a few months ago. So it's my pleasure to welcome everybody again. My name is Doalika Gottlieb. I'm the lead of the Austrian chapter, and I'm the Secretary General of the European Health Forum Gastein. And before we get started, I just wanted to mention one quick housekeeping note for the online audience. We have Slido online, so you can participate also. Please let us know what you think via Slido, which you can find on our conference platform. But also the on-site audience can participate via Slido. You see the QR code. That's probably the easiest way of contributing with your comments or questions. So, Women in Global Health. What is this network, and why are we so proud to be launching it here in Austria today? Women in Global Health is a non-for-profit global organization, and it's dedicated to challenging the status quo of power and privilege, and to work towards gender equality in health. And Women in Global Health has done this very successfully over the last years, and has grown to a network of 51 chapters, 48 countries, and 6,500 members, and I think something like 100,000 followers also, right, Rupa? And here in the Austrian chapter, we've also had obviously a smaller success, but a big success for us. Within these few months, we already have 150 members in our Austrian chapter. And what's really nice to see is that our membership is very diverse. We have very young colleagues, we have more senior colleagues, we have colleagues from all different sectors in health. So, and what really blew us away in the beginning is the enthusiasm and the support that we got from the very beginning from all sides. And I'm now delighted to welcome three pioneering women in Women in Global Health. And maybe I'll move over to the mic there just a second. First of all, Rupa Dutt. Rupa has joined us from the US today, so she extra flew in for our chapter launch today. Thanks so much for doing that, Rupa. Rupa is the Executive Director of Women in Global Health and the co-founder. And Ilona Kickbusch, I generally do not need to introduce, but just to remind everyone, Ilona is also the Vice President of the EHFG and has many important consulting roles. But the one I want to point to most here is Ilona has been crucial also for Women in Global Health in different roles. And Sabine Ludwig is the lead of the German chapter of Women in Global Health, and also the lead of the EU hub of the chapters in Europe. So a warm welcome to all three of you. So Rupa, let me start with you, please. You started this network in 2015, right, with 3 other young women. Why did you start the network, and how did you go about it?
Great. Thank you, Jorel, and thank you to everyone in the Women in Global Health Austria community that has really made this chapter possible. It really does take a group of dedicated women and allies from all genders. So again, a shout out to the men in the room too. So similarly, that is how we came to our story. But before I kick off, particularly I'm very excited to be here in Austria. Many of you may not know, but I consider Austria my third home. So my first home is I was born in India. I'm an Indian American born in the northern part in a state called Punjab. And I immigrated to the US when I was 5 years old. And like many immigrants, I spent summers with my grandparents in India. And I ended up getting really unwell when I was 9 years old. I was fortunate to be able to access care in India, but not many were able to during that time. And it was when I was first introduced to health inequities. And I knew from that moment on, yes, as a 9-year-old, that I was going to be working on health equity issues. For me, health is a human right. And that's the pathway that got me into global health. But fast forwarding a couple years later, as I was traversing my work in becoming a physician in the United States, but also having the ability to lead one of the largest student federations called the International Federation of Medical Student Associations in the world, I found that whether it was my clinical hallways or whether it was global health policy hallways, even though I knew there were so many dedicated women providing health at the highest level, women were being underrepresented. And I was very fortunate, like many of you, to have been touched by Professor Elena Kick-Bush during my early days, and I would say, I hope still my early days, and she really inspired me to take what was already happening online and find early career women and say, let's go ahead and be part of the solution. So we connected online on a platform, which I have to say, formerly known as Twitter, and you know, we started conversations a month later. We were on Skype, and then we snuck our way into the World Health Assembly, and we asked one question. And I want to put the minister on the spot today, but I will not. We asked the question, how many government delegations to the World Health Assembly were headed by women? Anyone want to guess? 10, 20, 50%? 10, okay. Well, that year was 23% of the member state delegations, government delegations, were headed by women. And even though women lead 70% of the health workforce delivery. Now, fast forwarding to this year, 2020, and later on in 2023, we are still seeing that women are just at that status quo of about 25% leadership roles. So what inspired us there was to really have collective action, and it took a group of dedicated people, and I'm so delighted to be on the stage with all of you who I consider part of the community, and many of you in the room who I consider part of the community too.
Thanks very much, Rupa. And as Rupa is saying, it takes a village, right? This is not something that you start alone. You always need allies with you. Ilona, we all know you as having done a lot of groundbreaking work, but we also know that very likely for you as a woman, it wasn't always that easy. There were barriers. Could you tell us about some barriers that you overcame?
Well, actually, I overcame a lot of barriers. I was lucky to have had a father who thought I could do anything, and so I thought I would do whatever I could do. Yes, I mean, I started out in the students' movement, and it was full of guys. And so we created the women's movement and the women's health movement, and because medicine was full of guys, and our issues weren't taken care of. I was lucky to become part of the World Health Organization, and it was full of guys. I never quite knew how and why I was discriminated, because I was a woman, I was young, and I was a non-doctor. And maybe that helped, because also as I was trying to move ahead, I never quite knew, is it because I'm a woman or something else? And so actually I was fighting 3 battles. Mm-hmm. And particularly, I think, the battle of the non-medical person in a medical environment was in some cases even tougher than being a woman. But I did manage to be the first woman director in the WHO regional office. I was able to start a number of initiatives for women, with women, like Women's Health Counts, and the first women's health reports for countries of the European region. And I'm really happy that many countries are still doing women's health reports, including Austria. And so I found a lot of support for my work in Austria, I must say, and particularly in the city of Vienna. And I'm very happy that Beate Wimmer-Puchinger is here, my partner in crime at the time. We were able to move a lot of things forward. And I think the wonderful thing has been the sustainability of many of these projects. That leads me to Rupa, obviously, there were lots of things. You can move forward as an individual, you can push things, you can put things on the agenda, etc. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, the whole system changes. And one day I was sitting in my office in Geneva, and it suddenly hit me, and I said, I've been doing this for 30-odd years, and I still sit on panels as the only woman. And I don't think that should be, it's strange as a revelation, but, it was. And so I started the initiative, and, social media had just started, and the argument you always got, there isn't enough women, And so I said, of course, there's loads of women out there. And so we started to collect women's names. It started a whole initiative. We had 300 names from around the world for global health panels. And then it became clear this needed to become something else. And then I was lucky to meet Rupa from the students' movement, and she took it forward. And I think that's also the other thing, this being able to work between generations then has been absolutely important. It's part of the overcoming, because you need the continuity, even though you sometimes feel the fight takes too long, but you need the continuity, and you need to be able to move things forward. And then I was very lucky on another day that I got this email from a person called Sabine, and she said she was looking for a mentor. And so we started to work together, and then you need a project, to move things forward. So I said, why don't we do Women in Global Health Germany? And that led to the very first European chapter of Women in Global Health. So you can overcome things, but only so far as an individual. You need a movement, you need to come together, and you need to fight.
Okay, thanks so much, Ilona, for that. And we know you're a model also when it comes to mentoring. Anytime we ask Ilona to mentor some young Gasteiners, you're always there for us. So thanks also for that. Sabine, as Ilona mentioned, you co-founded the German chapter. Looking back now, that was in 2018, right? What are you most proud of? What are the biggest successes?
First of all, congratulations to the launch today. And as Ilona already introduced, yes, we met through a mentoring program from Charité, actually the medical hospital in Berlin. And I would say our main highlight success is really, we grew to a very large network. We are about 350 women now in Women in Global Health Germany. And we are affiliated to the Charité Berlin, to the Global Health Center. So I can really advise actually every chapter, we can can advise every chapter to be affiliated to an institution. This is very important. We have published several reports. We have taken part in the global health strategy of the German government. We had a COVID-19 task force for Germany. And what is really a big milestone as well, that in May 2019, we have founded the European Chapters Board, and we are meeting regularly, like every 4 weeks, and having calls and exchanging experiences with the other European chapters. And we are happy to say that Women in Global Health Austria is the 11th chapter in Europe. So congratulations. Yes, and we also have a mentoring program now started within the European chapter. It is working very well, and we get a lot of appreciations from the women. And we also have published booklets of the women being members of our chapter. That means with a short CV, contacts, and their position. And those booklets we have sent to different stakeholders. So if we look now back during the last 5 years, we have a lot of very nice career development of several women within the chapter. And we also have like a Global Women's Health Group within the German Global Health Hub. So you see we are kind of connected also to different global health institutions and stakeholders within the country. And what I thought was really a highlight, not only for us, but for the global movement, last year there was the Nairobi peer-to-peer meeting of all the chapters. So we really had the chance to meet women from 45 countries and to exchange experiences about chapter development. But to close like our first experiences, I would really thank again Ilona very much, to kind of helping us start the chapter and bringing it to this point.
Thanks very much, Sabine. And we know one thing, Ilona is very good at nudging. She also nudged us to start this network. So some birth help is needed at times. Rupa, what are your highlights when you look back at the last 8 years of your time in Women in Global Health? You just came from UNGA now, right? Maybe you could share some experience with us. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say, Dorel, if I start the highlights of Women in Global Health, there are just countless. And this session would go way beyond the 15 minutes we have together. But a couple of things that I want to share is that Women in Global Health was volunteer field for the first 5 years. Everything that we did was volunteer field, including I was practicing and training as a clinical doctor. So there's a lot of power in what we achieved. We have official relations with the World Health Organization to work on issues such as gender responsive universal health coverage, to advance gender transformative approaches to health workforce. Really delighted that the government of Austria, through the Minister of Health Austria, has committed to joining the Gender Equal Healthcare Workforce Initiative that we co-host with the government of France, that has 15 governments and it has 50 other partners. And the latest news from this month is that we have official status with the United Nations, which is called ECOSOC status, and Women in Global Health was able to send 5 different delegates from our chapters to the official high-level meetings that took place on universal health coverage, pandemic preparedness, and TB. So these are just some of the highlights. But for me, the most exciting is what's happening here. And I truly mean it, that this is the room I want to be in, is that every time a community of Women in Global Health forms, a chapter of Women in Global Health forms, that's the most special thing. That's the catalytic. That's what's going to change the barriers that we're talking about. As Ilona talks about the many barriers she's faced, and I've heard these stories countless, intergenerational, doesn't matter what background the woman is from, diverse, what geography, we're still facing gender barriers, and it's that collective action. And I know we're going to be at time, so I'm just going to close with what lessons very briefly. I'd say stay committed to solidarity. The pandemic has showed us we're not having global solidarity. There's still inequities. The second is realize women's rights is a constant battle. It's happening here in Europe very much, and we must realize that the rights can be taken back. And the final thing I'll close on is saying collective action. That's what it's really going to take. And so for me, this is the most powerful and inspiring room to be. So thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Rupa. And Ilona, you were pointing to the manals that you encountered. Also at the UNGA now, we saw some manals. So after the many years that you've been watching that, why is it that leadership is still in the hands of men when it comes to global health, when it comes to healthcare?
Well, it's very simple. Nobody wants to give up power. I mean, come on. And so I take it back to the collective action that Rupa referred to. But at the same time, you know, again, individuals can make a difference. One of the highlights for me was that a couple of days after he was elected Director General, Dr. Tedros asked to see me. And he said, Ilona, I know all the work you've done in relation to women and health. I have made the commitment that I will have an equal number of senior women in my office, and I want your help on this. And so, you know, it needs the people who are willing to move this forward, and in many cases that can be men in power. Mm-hmm. And so I think always doing both in a way is important. The fight is important, the really critical push, you know, sometimes you've got to be really annoying. And on the other hand, the support to people, and particularly men in power who do want to change things, can also be very important. And I think, you know, I've played on all those things, but the reason is we have such a thing as patriarchy, and it's not over yet. And somebody calculated it needs another 300 years. I'd prefer it to be slightly less, and so we just continue with doing things like that. And let's start in the health system to reshape the power relationships there.
Thank you, Ilona. So we have to pick our allies well, right? Sabine, you've just recently moved to Innsbruck, actually. Quite a move from Berlin to Innsbruck. And you have a professorship on diversity in medicine. So that's really exciting to have you here in Austria to work on that topic. What do you intend to achieve for mostly? Do you already have first goals?
Thank you, yes. Actually, I have the pleasure that I follow Professor Hochleitner. Maybe some of you might know her. So she has been, I think, a pioneer in women's leadership and in gender medicine in Austria. And with this professorship, we kind of opened it up a little bit, not only the gender dimension, but also the other categories of diversity. So I think there are three main goals. We want to fix the institution, we need to fix the numbers, and we need to fix the content. So if I start with fixing the institution, we have to look about, you know, what are the leadership numbers, how many women are in leadership positions. And still, I also looked at the data in Austria. If we look at the numbers of medical students and medical doctors, it's about 50% female doctors, 50% male. But if you look at leadership positions, I think in the Ärztekammer, like in the, it's only 4.8 percent, and in a director's level, I think it was 18.8%. And if you look at professorships, so every fourth professor is actually female, but it's the same all over the European countries. So fixing like the institution, fixing the numbers. It's also like if you look at medical students or students in general, also of the other health professions, that we try to be more inclusive and also consider, especially for medicine students with a different socioeconomic background. But not only this category, just having this diversity perspective in mind. And third point is fixing the content, and Professor Hochleitner really has achieved a lot. Gender medicine is already in the curriculum, so of course my main goal is that it, you know, stays there. And also we are going to have like a lecture on gender medicine that is open, that she has also implemented already for several years, so I definitely want to keep this, but I would plan to kind of have a second lecture, but more on global health issues. So I think it would be interesting to work together also with Women in Global Health Austria to have like also experts speaking within this lecture series. And concerning mentoring programs, and then I finish, Professor Hochlein also has established 2 already. It's for clinical mentorship, clinical PhD. So that's also my 4th point, actually, to include it also in science for that students already in their PhD and their diploma by, it's not master thesis that they have to write here, it's like this diploma by, so that they have like this gender and diversity perspective also when they plan their studies and study design, etc., with all the challenges that are involved with that. But so those are kind of the first goals that we have, or that we want to achieve.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Rupa wants to comment shortly.
Just a side tangent to what you were saying, Sabine, I'm really glad you shared those numbers. I'm actually going to be sharing them with my father-in-law, who is a urologist here in Austria. He told me at the dining table the other time we had a meal that, you know, women are taking over in Austria. I told him, well, that's a really good thing. But what I want to share with one of the lessons is data really matters and it makes a difference. And how Women in Global Health approaches it is we use evidence to drive that policy action. So exactly the way that Sabine talked about the data here in Austria, it's great that we have data in many other chapters all around the world, and we actually look at that data and we again point to the discrepancy, because too often you'll hear, you know, women are taking over, we're forgetting the boys, we're forgetting the men, and actually gender equality is about everyone's business. But I often say women's rights has not been achieved yet, as Ilona said on the stage, you know, 300 years. I can't even fathom what that looks generation-wise. So let's really make sure we control the narrative with data. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And a big thank you to the 3 women here who've paved the way for us to start the Austrian chapter. Thank you very much to Rupa, Ilona, and Sabine. And it's now my great pleasure to ask one of our allies to come and join us up here, and to maybe you could share with us how we can move female leadership forward. The Austrian Minister, here please, thank you. The Austrian Minister for Social Affairs, Health, Care and Consumer Protection. I don't know why Austria always has such long names for ministries.
I wanted to.
And then they keep changing, right? If you could share your thoughts with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dear ladies, dear members of the Women in Global Health Initiative, first let me say, Ilona, your words, so true. So true. You're fighting for, what do you say, 30 years or so, always the same fights. And sometimes I guess we have a kind of rollback. You're fighting for things actually in 2023. Have a debate in 20 years ago about abortion, for example, not only in the US, also in Austria, in the most western part of Austria where I come from. So let me say it's a great pleasure for me to be here today. Welcome you today's Women in Global Health chapter launch on such a great occasion with the Austrian public health community gathered here in wonderful Bad Hofgastein. Today another chapter of the worldwide network Women in Global Health kicks off in Austria, and I'm very proud. It's a good day. My heartfelt thanks also go to the European Health Forum Gastein, who has taken on the role of host organization. Women in Global Health shows clearly how important networks are that work on the issues of gender equality and ensuring fairness, and also specifically in the area of the global health. The speed at which the organization has grown around the globe is enormous. Because we met last year in Geneva, I guess, and it's fabulous what happened in this last year. So congratulations to you at first. Very good job. Yes, please. Huge success worldwide and very important for women and society in general, because unfortunately we are still a long way from equality between men and women. It is a matter of personal concern to me that this changes, a personal agenda in my ministry, in my whole political life. And I say it as a feminist, as a man, and as a political decision maker. You all know, and we have a discussion before about the Austrian health system, and I try to change the Austrian health system. You can wish me luck. You all know that the situation is particularly unequal in the health sector. It is unequal. Management positions in the health sector are mostly held by men. Care work, often unpaid, is done by women. That needs to change. That needs to change. I also know from personal experience how important it is for women to hold decision-making positions. I am very lucky to be a member of the Green Party, because in our constitution there is a 50-50 share in all positions between men and women. Otherwise, we wouldn't be the same as the others. Very clear. Otherwise, we would be the same as the others. We didn't have the 50-50 share of the positions. And I'm surrounded by, yes, of course, I have to talk about my team. I'm surrounded by intelligent, talented women, mostly women, young women, without whose know-how, strategies, and decisions I would not be where I am today. Let it say true. It's your job you've done for sure, and it's an excellent job. In summary, we need female leadership. We need female leadership. That's not a question. I also try not only to foster female talent in our ministry, but to give priority to issues that affect women. Just recently, we managed to republish the Women Health Report for the first time in 10 years. And I tell you, there is a lot to do. I am so pleased that another important step for female leadership was taken today with launching the Austrian Women in Global Health chapter. I wish you all the best this initiative, and you will always have my support. You will always have my support. And to all Women in Global Health members, please use this great opportunity here in Gastein to build and enhance strong alliances. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister, and we will surely come back to you for your support. Thank you so much for your encouraging words. I'd now like to ask my core group members to join me here on stage. Petra, Selam, and Eva, could you please come up on stage? And while you're finding a seat, my colleague Julia is doing our newsroom job here today. Is there anything coming in from the online audience? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We have a lot of participation, and we received a lot of support from many chapters of Women in Global Health around the world. We had registrations from so many different countries in Africa, in Asia. It's so wonderful to see that we are part of such a big worldwide network. So first of all, thanks to all of them who are watching us on online. And there's been many questions. Most of them, many of them focus around female leadership and the most important qualities that we can promote for female leadership for the next generations, while some other ones were focused more around the organization of Women in Global Health and what the organization envisages for its future, and also how it works for men participation in the network and how it's handled, for example, was one of the questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Julia. So the last question I can answer very quickly. We're open for male members in the network, but as far as leadership is concerned, it's restricted to women. That's the rule. So we are very happy to have as many allies as we can get. Now to the three women here. We were talking about a village, so this is like family. This is a core group. We're the 5 women who started this movement, having been nudged by Ilona, as I was saying. And I'd like to start with you, Petra. You now work for the EZ, which is a Center for Diversity, Dialogue and Education in Vienna. You're a specialist in intercultural trainings. So with all that background, how does that chime in with Women in Global Health, and what made you decide to join?
Thank you. First of all, I'm very happy to be here. It's exciting. And to be part of this core group. Well, I think it has been mentioned by Ilona and also Sabina that diversity in healthcare goes very well together. I mean, how it started for me is that I have always been a traveler, and this is when I realized that there's health disparities, quite big ones, and not everyone has access and to good quality of care. That made me until today really try to protect and defend health as a human right? And that also made me join the International Humanitarian Aid Organization, MSF, where I have been working for many years. And then after that, so we also saw that there's globally a lot of, especially women, are vulnerable groups to who don't have the access to healthcare they deserve. And this actually carries on until today. And I'm, as an intercultural and diversity trainer, I'm looking into differences, individual differences like socioeconomic background or sex, gender, and how these differences are interconnected and how they make a difference. Mm-hmm. And they make different differences depending on context. So it's very important to have this intersectional lens and also to have the gender lens. And so I think diversity is important in terms of to see around those dimensions, because this is where often discrimination happens if we don't look at these differences. And this is when people get hindered, women get hindered to climb up maybe career in health, but also to get access to healthcare. So yeah, that is something that really drives me, and I found when Women in Global Health, I found a platform, a network where there's a lot of commitment and support on that topic, and yeah, to work on health equity and better female leadership in health.
Okay, thank you very much, Petra. And we've already used Petra's expertise in one of our workshops. She did an intercultural training with us already once, so that's much appreciated. Selam, you did not grow up in Austria, but you went to university here. You're a doctoral researcher now at the University of Vienna, Medical University of Vienna. What made you join this network, and why do you think it's important?
Well, thank you for having me again. And I'm actually very grateful to be representing the Women in Global Health chapter as an African woman from Ethiopia. Not many women can say that. And of course, Austria is my current home right now. And like Ilona said, I am facing 4 barriers. And that's why I really think that a network like Women in Global Health is really important, because it's a place for to connect, but also grow together, not just professionally, but also personally. Well, yeah. And we don't always meet in a big room like this. We organize smaller events, like called Meetup, where a lot of women can have space to share their personal experience, so we can navigate this crazy world. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, Selam. Selam is looking at the time because we're overdrawing already, so thanks, Selam, for that. Eva, you returned to Austria. You used to live here at some point, but lived in Norway for many years. You now work for the, not university, what is it again, St. Pölten?
University of Applied Science.
Yes, thank you. University of Applied Sciences in St. Pölten. What made you come back, and what experiences did you have in Norway? Because you were also part of the Norwegian chapter, right?
Yeah. Well, so what made me come back is really more like of a personal matter, and I wanted to be closer to my hometown, which is in Slovenia. But I guess for me, it's also with regard then to the networks that I have created throughout. I moved a little bit around Europe, in Norway, when I was the member of the Norwegian Women in Global Health, we have tried to see, okay, so how can we really make the network stronger? How can we really kind of like pull each other up or lift each other up, and exactly what Ilona was saying as well, thinking of kind of like having a pool of speakers that we can actually come forward when it comes to different conferences and so on. But one thing that I feel that it's really, really important as well is that through those networks, it's not only professional things. You actually see so much expertise. You learn so many new things, that experiences that the women have, and different genders in the networks have. But I think it's really this. For me, the wow is you actually become really good friends with some of the people, and these friendships can last forever. So I was part of the Young Forum Gastein from the start onwards, and it's so inspiring to see Dimitra today sitting at the high-level panel and so on. We are friends. So I think this is also inspiration for all of us to say, okay, we can move this forward as a network, as the village, as we call ourselves now. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, Eva, and thank you. And one thing that's really close to your heart, Eva, is mentoring, right? So we're planning a mentorship program. If you could just very shortly point to that, please.
Yes. So we will send out a survey. You can visit us also at the stand, and we will give you more information. But what we are really trying to do, mentoring has been in the last years a big buzz, but at least when I started, I didn't have one mentor in a sense that I would have somebody to ask. I was lucky enough to have parents who could guide me through. Then throughout, I found a way to have many mentors and asking people. But sometimes I think, especially for people who are early career, it's often that we need a little bit of a nudge, and that you don't maybe repeat the mistakes that somebody else has done before you. So in a sense, what we are trying to do really with the mentoring is that we are collecting mentors and mentees, but we are going to do the reciprocal mentoring. So we all learn from each other, right? So it's not that we would say somebody senior is only a mentor to the junior, but we do it both ways. So that's the idea with the mentoring. And yes, please then, I'm kind of like asking you all to join our mentoring program. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much to the 3 core group members. Thank you. And this leaves me now to ask the 5th core group member to come to the stage, and 3 experts, if you could come up, please. Victoria Stein is an assistant professor at Leiden University, and she's an expert in integrated care. And actually, Victoria got in touch with Women in Global Health at about the same time that I did, so we decided to co-found this. So over to you, Victoria. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, welcome everyone. I'm really overwhelmed to see so many faces here present at our official launch. And that really gives me hope, because when I moved back to Austria after a decade abroad, I didn't really want to come back, because I thought, well, who cares about public health and integrated care in Austria? And who cares about women in health? But obviously, I was wrong. At least here in this room, you can see the force and you can see the interest in the topic. We just need to convince everybody outside there. As the minister said, healthcare reform is a big issue, and we are fighting against a lot of old hierarchies. So this last overview is really also about giving you an idea of the broad scope that really represents global health, and to show you some of those speakers that, that could also provide you with expertise around why is women in global health, why is gender equality, why is this an issue also in Austria, when very often we associate it actually with low and middle income countries. But this is very important for the Austrian context as well, and obviously we as Austrian women leaders do want to support the international community as well. So with that, I would like to invite onto the panel Annette Niksch, Regina Roller-Winsberger, and Ursula Trummer to give us a brief glimpse of what it means in their fields, really, when we talk about women in global health. And I'll start with Annette Niksch because she is actually a veterinary epidemiologist. You work on One Health, and obviously we hear a lot of different keywords: planetary health, One Health, global health, public health, inclusion health. What is One Health, and how does that relate really to gender equality and global health?
Hi, thanks for having me here. One Health term, as I said, there's a lot of different terms and discussion and also confusion about these terms. One Health is an approach that that stresses the interconnection between animal health, human health, and also environmental health. These health systems are there, these health sectors are all interconnected. In the past, from the European perspective, we would think about rabies vaccination programs in sub-Saharan Africa, where you vaccinate children and dogs at the same time. So this would be One Health. But One Health is also very important for European setting, and it's getting increasingly more important. Just have in mind the Paris example. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, we all read the news in the newspapers that the health officials in Paris fumigated for the first time neighborhoods in Paris to kill tiger mosquitoes to prevent the spread of dengue and other potential vector-borne diseases. So nature, it's coming back, so that the pathogens are here. We're maybe only one day ahead from the next pandemic or from the next introduction of zoonotic agents.
Thank you very much, Annette. And I want to actually give the word back to Regina, because we hear here that we know a lot about One Health from infectious diseases. Obviously, COVID-19 was also something that actually brought public health and veterinary health, One Health, into our perspectives. Now, your passion is medical education. It's also geriatrics and gender medicine. But I want to focus on the role of education and training. If we want to change a system, and if we want to change the workforce, we need to change education and training. So what would you say, how can education and training really help us in becoming more gender equal, becoming more equitable as a society as well, and also supporting women leadership?
Thanks for the question. Thanks for having me. Good to see you all in here. Thanks for the glimpse on education and training. Actually, I think all the systems are changing across Europe at the moment. So health systems are under extreme pressure. People leaving the system, and also due to demography, the change in those who receive the care in the healthcare systems, and it's mainly the older women. So we have a gender gap here as well. Actually, I'm a bit favorite, as I'm the curricular director of a huge medical university in Austria. And what I see is that we have a lot of young women coming up and visiting our universities, attending universities, becoming medical doctors. And still there is a huge difference when we do the training for these young women compared to men. So as we have heard, the problem is that it's mainly women delivering the care, and it's the old grey men who are leading the systems. And what I see from my experience is during training, the young women behave differently. And I think during the incoming decade, I would strongly recommend that we reshape the way we train our personnel, also to give the capacity to young women to believe in themselves. And to create the capacity of an innovator. For instance, at our university, we have re-elaborated the professional roles we are heading for in our students, and the role of the innovator has become, a few months ago, has become one of the crucial roles which we would like to drive our students towards. And why this? Because we have to develop education and training hand in hand with those who change the healthcare systems. So please come along, and I think the only possibility to do that and to close the gender gap is to go more out of the silos, becoming a doctor, becoming a nurse, becoming a physiotherapist, and let's go for interprofessional education. The problem we have is that evidence is very low. So towards the politicians, please provide us the support to prove the concepts which works best for the young staff growing and how to train them. That would be really highly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Regina, you raised also a really important point, and that was the workforce need to be innovators as well. We've heard already that care work is women's work. It has been for centuries, for probably millennia, and it still is all over the world. Ursula, you work at the Center for Health and Migration, and obviously not only the official care work is female, also the unofficial and the home care work is female. So from your point of view, how can women in global health support also this dilemma of inequities between countries and addressing this workforce gap, really, that we have in care?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I think, first of all, and it will not surprise you because I come from the Center for Health and Migration, I think when we think about women in global health, we have to think about migration as well. And I would like to give you a very concrete example in Austria. As you said, health care at home, home care for the elderly, is an increasing important area. Also when we look at weakening institutional settings. So this is very, very crucial to give good care for elderly old people in Austria. And if we look at data, we do see that there are 65,500 registered home carers. They are registered as entrepreneurs in the Chamber of Commerce. And basically all of them are migrant women. There are some exceptions, but basically a vast majority of them are migrant women, mainly coming from Romania nowadays. And how can this happen? And here I come to the inequality that lies within this phenomenon. This happens because we have social inequalities within Europe, within European member states. It's easier for European citizens to migrate, temporarily migrate, and that, of course, gives us the opportunity to receive women from Romania, from Bulgaria, from other countries that don't have the wealth that Austria still has, and have them as caregivers in Austria. So the whole model is based on inequality. And maybe one thing more to say is this model is not sustainable, because if you look at the population pyramids, the population pyramid in Romania looks basically the same than in Austria. So this is an aging population as well. So we will come very soon to the limits with the model that we have right now.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And what is even more striking is when you see the impact that this migration, forced or unforced, really also has on the countries that are left without the care workers. I've got a project at the moment in Moldova, where also a lot of the young people, really well educated, they leave the country because they have better prospects in Romania. So really looking at how can we reinvent a solidarity system among European countries is something that is really important.
May I add something?
Yes.
Just to add one thing, because you said you were addressing informal or unofficial carers. I mean, Austria has developed over the years a model to legalize this black and grey labor market. And I personally believe that this model is not that bad. Mm-hmm. I mean, the way it's implemented, the way it works right now, there is room for improvement, for sure. But I think that the legal framework that is in place can be used to make something meaningful out of that. And I think, in coming back to your question, what can be done, I think what is needed in this system is respect and trust. It's about attitudes. We don't have the right attitude. We don't have the right attitude towards older people. We don't have the right attitude towards people who take care of older people. And we don't have the right attitude to people who come to us, to come to our country, to do the jobs that we don't want to do anymore.
Yeah. You address a really important topic, which is attitude. And as an educator myself, when we're talking about competencies and education, we are really good at transferring knowledge, which is the head, and the skills. But it's the attitudes and the heart which are part of competencies, part of education and training. And that's every one of us. The way we treat each other, the way we treat other professionals, the way we treat other people is reflected, because we are peers, we are junior staff members, senior staff members. So it's really important to also reflect for yourselves, how do I actually treat other people? Because it is only through the peer support and peer education that we can change the attitudes. Julia, we've had a lot of different topics already. We heard about One Health, veterinary health, education, the workforce, the inequalities within the workforce. What other topics have come up from the audience?
There's many different topics, and for example, there is a question that many people liked about the confidence gap and how to address that for women in global health. Also talking about the gender bias in health data and how to overcome that. One person was also asking about migration and the fact that Austria is becoming more and more diverse every day, so linking to what we just discussed. And then there is, I think, an interesting statement reminding us that today is World Contraception Day, and that on Thursday will be World Abortion Day, and mentioning that individual family planning leads to more gender equality.
Thank you so much. So maybe as closing statements, I really like this question about how to boost confidence and how to really also support confidence as a woman. We've heard from all of our panel members that it is difficult to lead as a woman. You encounter a lot of difficulties and barriers. So how did you build your confidence? How do you hold up your confidence? And what would you tell young women how to build that, Annette?
I think it's about not being afraid of trying something new. Because what I realized in my career is just like one person can do a lot, and if you're two, you can do the triple, and if you're more, you can do everything. It's just trying, getting out of your silo and getting out of your bubble. And this is a treasure island. I'm a treasure hunt. I want to find the people who help me to get up with new ideas and to create something new.
Excellent. Regina?
I would say it's a lot on self-reflection. Mm-hmm. And we're people living in community. So self-reflection and communication. And I think we are in the right place for this chapter launch.
Thanks a lot. Ursula, your final thoughts on confidence.
Pooh, that's not easy. I think the first thing I would say is we need evidence. Mm-hmm. We need a better evidence to inform policy making and to inform practice. That would be my starting point. I'm very confident that women can do that, and my own experience is that women are great in cooperation. maybe they are less great in competition. Maybe this is why they are not in the high up leadership positions. But we can improve in that as well, if we want to. Yes, but I think evidence comes first. But the other thing is also that evidence only becomes relevant when we process it not only with the brain, but also with the heart.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. This also really has circled back nicely to what Rupa said about the importance of data and using numbers, but also using us as numbers and being strong in numbers. One of the accusations I often hear as a woman leader is, you're too loud. And don't be so loud. I know I have a loud voice, so sorry for that. But not to apologize and be even louder. I think that is really what we need to learn here. And so with that, I hand back to Dorli for the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I won't keep you long. Just a big, big thank you to our speakers today, to the core group for doing this together, and especially also to the EHFG team, foremostly Julia, who've really supported this very enthusiastically from the very beginning, and not to forget Clemens, the board. The EHFG board is behind this, and without, as Sabine was saying, without an institution behind this, a network like that would not work. So many thanks also to you and the board. So many thanks. Enjoy the EHFG. Our next sessions start at 4:30, and please come by the Women in Global Health stand. Thank you.